Good morning, Leah. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Of course, it's afternoon over where you're at.
Almost. Just fed the kids lunch, so everybody's happy for now.
I'm really excited for this interview and thank you so much for agreeing to it because your posts literally light me up.
Oh,
Every time I read them, Leah is at Your Natural Learner on Instagram. And if you need any support
mm,
in your deschooling, unschooling, homeschooling journey, just follow her because she gives you just uh, a ladder,
mm,
something to hang on to. When I read your posts, I'm just like, yes, yes. And I always want to forward them because it's really, really important what you talk about.
yeah.
So I'm going to start with your bio.
Perfect.
Leah McDermott is a former master teacher turned unschooling advocate and mother of three. After over a decade spent in the world of education, two Masters of Education degrees, and multiple teaching certifications, Leah slowly began to realize that the way we were teaching our children in public schools went against everything that we knew to be true about learning acquisition and child development. Yay, hallelujah.
Yes.
When, when she gave birth to her first son, she knew it was time to make a change, and she left the classroom to be home with her child. Her passion for helping other children and families didn't disappear, however. So, as her son got older and closer to school age, she was determined to lean in to trusting him as a learner and supporting other families in doing the same with their children. Through developing a child led learning curriculum, creating a supportive space online for parents, and most recently opening Bridge Academy, a private umbrella school for homeschoolers, Leah continues her life's work of encouraging adults to unlearn what they've always believed to be true as they lean fully into trusting their children as natural, capable learners. Leah currently lives in Pennsylvania with her husband, Brian, their three boys, and a collection of pets. Outside of work, she and her family are passionate about traveling the world and learning about new things together.
That is me.
That is you. And so, after reading your bio, is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. I think, I love your analogy of a ladder. I've never really thought of it that way before, but this like, this is what I want to do, right? Just be here and talk to people about this because like and this isn't just my work. Like this morning my husband and I were sipping over coffee and we were talking because he's a former teacher too, and it's like this is all we do is talk about like all of these things that we see. And we're sitting there like last night was Halloween and we're sitting here just like slowly drinking our coffee, the kids are sleeping in, and we see the school buses going by. Like all these kids were out late last night having fun with friends. It's 7 a.m., off they go again, and the neighbors are honking to get the kids in the car, and everyone's got to go to work. And it's just no matter, it's like I have to keep going. I have to keep going until all these kids aren't on the bus anymore. Like it's soul crushing to see how, but and yet, then there's these posts, and then there's the motivation and the parents who say, "Oh, I'm finally doing something different and I feel different." And the kids, I noticed the difference in my kids in a week already. Like, it's just keep going. And yeah, I love that analogy of the ladder though. Just like something to hold on to, even if it's just the simplest little thing to remind you
Yes. Yeah.
this is what we're doing this
Also,
for a reason.
yeah. And also just kind of like climbing the ladder too. It's, we're at the bottom. Where do we go from here? And it's just like next steps. And really, I see that's what Bridge Academy is. But before we talk about Bridge Academy, I really want to talk about this shift that you made because a lot of what you hear from parents is, oh, well, you're able to unschool, homeschool, whatever, because you had the luxury,
Sure.
have the funds, you have a working parent, and the other one's not working. And so you have that luxury, right? And that is not your story.
That is not my
So
story.
can you share a little bit about your story?
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean, neither my husband or myself come from means. There's no trust funds, there's no family money to take into our story. We didn't have a house. We just bought our first house and we're almost 40 years old. Like, that's definitely not our story. Our story was that's what mattered. We were both teachers. We all know that teachers don't make a lot of money no matter how many degrees or years you have. You're not making a lot of money doing that. And we knew that wasn't it. We wanted our kids to see the world. We wanted them to have the experiences of being able to follow their own passions, unschool and break free from all these things that we believed that weren't really true and certainly weren't serving us. And I mean that we started with nothing, we sold everything we owned. We lived here in Pennsylvania before. We sold literally everything that didn't fit in a trailer, drove across the country and lived on a little farm in Oregon for a while until we raised a little bit more money and lived in Eugene, Oregon for 6 years and built this business. We would I would book speaking gigs at schools, and the money that I earned of my speaking fees is how we drove to the next town, and we would camp and we'd sleep in our van, but the kids got to see the country. And that's just it, snowball. That's it. Anybody can do this. You can do this if you believe it, and it's what you want. It's like anything else, right? When we really believe that this is the path that's best for our kids, we can find a way. And maybe it's different for everybody. Maybe it's more creative. Maybe there's grandparents that can have the kids for a while. Maybe you find another mom and you trade your working shifts, and she watches the kids one day and you watch them the next day, and it's doable.
It's
It's
doable.
like it's everything in parenting is a sacrifice of some sort, right? We give up something to make our kids' lives better than ours were, and to make the world better than it was for us. So yeah, it definitely is doable for sure.
Yeah, and I'd like to also point out, to when you say to make our kids' lives better, right? We have to, as parents, be willing to step back and see what it is that our kids are seeking, because a lot of times our paradigms are old. And
Mm,
we'll come forward and say, oh, I need to work really hard and make a lot of money and have a trust fund or blah, 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 in order to make our kids' lives better,
mm,
you know, because of the money, because
yeah.
that's what's going to fuel us. And the reality is, they're not looking for the money. They're looking to be seen. They're
Mhm.
looking for our participation in their lives. They're looking for us to step into their own wisdom.
Yes.
And we don't have the capacity to do that unless we're willing to be vulnerable.
Absolutely. It's all connection, right? Connection is what they want.
Yeah.
And, I might not have grown up in a family with a lot of money, but I had love, and I had belief from my parents that I was capable. And that is what fueled me to do what I do today. Not that they could fund a business for me, but that they trusted in me and believed in me, and I could do the same thing. And that's what I'm mostly trying to pass on to my kids. But also, you talk about these paradigm shifts. I mean, that's happening collectively, right? Even the way we make money now is so different. You don't have to have a master's degree and be a Wall Street banker to be the richest person. You can be an influencer. You can video game and make a lot of money playing video games. Like, you can sell anything now. And our kids have that
Always been like
luxury.
that.
Yeah.
It's always been like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's the thing that I tell my daughter when she says, "Oh, well, there's always this that I could." She's an avid horse rider,
Okay.
right? And she'll say, "Oh, I could always do this or I can do that." And I said, "Dylan, those are all stepping stones. What you create
Yeah.
for yourself has not been created. We don't
Hmm.
know what you're going to be, and
Yeah.
you're going to be whatever you are, and it's not what somebody else has created.
Hmm.
We
Absolutely.
have to be willing just to step off the cliff."
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
And the research is there too. I mean, it's a lot of it is like this mental space of shifting, right? So much. But it's grounded in reality too. We know that the jobs that exist today, they won't exist by the time our kids get jobs. They won't. Most of the jobs that are done today will be done robotically or by AI. And yet our school system is still training children to be factory workers. That's not even the reality now, let
no.
alone by the time our kids graduate and get jobs. And yet we dig our heels in. Like, well, that's what we've always done. Well, that's what I had to do. And that's where that unlearning and that deschooling comes in of like, well, why do you believe that though? Why
Right.
do you think that's what they have to do? Why should an 8-year-old have to sit in a room all day and believe that that's their work at that age? This is
Right.
actually what my husband and I are talking about this morning, is like we went from children working in factories, and then we're like, oh, we can't let them do that. So we'll put child labor laws into place, but now we'll just put them in a room all day so that they believe already that's still the schedule they have to have, and they have to be accountable to a boss or a teacher. Like we're just training them to go be workers. That's it. Your whole life is a worker. And we miss everything about who they are, who we are as people. We're not creative. We're not passionate,
Yeah, I think was it Albert Einstein that says that he believes that school as it is basically drives the creativity out of people.
Oh, for sure. Mm-hmm.
It absolutely does. How can you be creative when you're literally sitting in a box being told what to do and disconnected from your body? How many people now in our 40s and 50s are going through somatic healing to connect with our bodies? And yet we're still sending our kids to school. And like, oh, by the way, when your child's at school, they need to sit. They're not allowed to go to the bathroom when they want to. They're not allowed to eat when they want to. They need to wake up at the crack of dawn when everyone still wants to sleep. We want to sleep.
Right. Yep.
Why?
Yep. Yeah. And that's the answer, right? Why? To prepare them to work. That's it. That's the only answer. Or to babysit them while their parents are working. It's just this like capitalistic driven society really is what it comes down to. Very patriarchal, very capitalistic, but it's, we can step away. And when we start to say why, all of these doors start opening, because it isn't just education. Those whys, when you start asking, why are we doing it this way? You start to see a lot of things you maybe wish the curtains hadn't been pulled back on, right? Like you're in the Wizard of Oz and you could just put it back in and pretend that it was this pretty wizard, but it's not. It's all for a purpose. And it's not a sole purpose. Definitely not.
No. And can we just ask ourselves as parents, why do we work at a job that's soul crushing and pine for the days that we can retire?
Mm-hmm.
Why do we do that?
Yeah.
Can we sit back and imagine what life could be like if we didn't jump on this hamster wheel?
Yeah.
Let's call into our lives people who have not jumped on the
Yeah.
hamster wheel.
Yeah. Absolutely. And everybody has that person in their life, right? My father-in-law, that was it. Work, work, work. That's all that matters. Work, work, work. As soon as he retired, he got sick and injured himself, and he can't do any of the things that he loved. He can't play golf anymore. He can't travel anymore. He wasted all of it, like all of that work.
Yeah,
What did it get you? Disconnected from your kids. You didn't
yeah.
get to pursue your own passions or be creative. And yeah, and you're right. I mean, that's, part of my story was I started working in kindergarten classrooms, and they came in excited and silly, and they believed in magic, and they were creative, and everything had like a crazy new idea. And then I got transferred to 5th grade, and nobody was like that anymore. Everybody hated it. And I was like, what have we done? What did we do to them? In 5 years, we destroyed them. Their humanity is gone, and they're all medicated, and they don't want to be here. They don't care. They don't want to read. They don't want to write. They don't want to create anything. Even if you try at that point, even if you're the teacher that's like, I want to make it different, my class will be fun, it's too late. We're destroying them. And, the research shows that by 4th grade, they've decided who they are as learners. If they have been made to think that they can't read, can't write, can't draw, can't sing, can't do math, they believe that forever. How many adults do you know that say, oh, I'm so bad at
So
math?
many, so
I
many.
could never homeschool my kids because I can't do math. I couldn't teach them. I don't like reading. I'm a bad writer. Oh, I can't sing. We just believe all of these things forever. We believe that forever
Yeah.
because of what was crushed out of us in the school system. And yet we just keep doing it and nobody questions it because
Yeah.
it's just what you do. But there have to be enough brave people to start saying, I'm not doing this anymore. And it's healing for us to say that was done to me.
Mhm.
And I can heal from that and make sure it doesn't happen to my child at the same
Right.
time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We can always make a change anytime, no matter how old we are.
Mhm. Mhm.
So now that brings us to Bridge Academy. When
Yeah.
I looked at what Bridge Academy was, I was like, what? This person has made a like just what you called it, an umbrella
Mhm.
for people who have questions, because that's the biggest question. What if my kid wants to go to college? Or here
Mhm.
you are, other people have created curriculums and they're
Yep.
very curriculum-y. They're very
Mm.
academic. And yours is completely different. And
Yes.
you are holding people's hands,
Mm.
right, as they are deprogramming themselves. And
Exactly.
I love that. I know you told me not to talk about it because it's already full, but I love that you have this natural learning parent intensive
Mm.
that starts now and is
Yeah.
full, but
Right.
clearly there's going to be more. So I would encourage anybody who's watching this to follow Leah, jump on Bridge Academy, and find out immediately when she's going to host another one. Because if any of this resonates with you and you wish you
Mm.
could figure something out, this is it.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
it. The parent intensive is really, she's got two masters. She
Mhm.
and her husband we're both teachers.
Mhm.
Like, there was a father who unschooled his kids. He calls it self-directed learning, which is exactly what we all are, right? And the word autodidactic,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And I looked that up and I was like, hold on a second. We're all autodidactic.
Right.
This is ridiculous. Learning
Yeah.
doesn't come from formal education or a box. But no, we are all autodidactic, and that is what we need to drive into people. We
Yeah.
learn. Please
Yes.
do not be afraid that if you leave your child to their own devices, that they will become nothing, because that's not why we're here.
No, no. And it's fear driven, right? Everything we do is fear driven. Even if it's the peer pressure, that's still fear driven, right? Like, well, I would love to homeschool my kid. They would love to be homeschooled, but my mother-in-law doesn't approve, or my sister is a teacher and doesn't think I'm capable, or the neighbors don't do that. And even when we start, we're like, well, I'm going to do it anyway. And then maybe we only do what we know, which is school at home. Then they're sitting around the dining room table and you're still doing workbooks, but then you're the bully, not the teachers. Now you're the bully. And that work like breaks up your connection with your child even more, because at least at school they could come home to a safe place. But if you just recreate that at home, now even the safe place is gone, and you're not that safe place anymore, which creates even more resistance. And then they never go back. And that's why COVID homeschooling, while it opened a lot of eyes for people, like when they suddenly had to homeschool no matter what, a lot of eyes were open, like, oh, this is easier. Oh, my kids can just be home. But
It's
a
really
lot of
comfortable.
people, yeah, a lot of people, it made it worse for them. Like it was like self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Oh, wow, that was so bad for us because I was trying to be the teacher and the parent. But we have to remove all of that. We have to undo all of that programming, because your children are very capable and they're very smart. My middle child came up to me this morning. I know very little about computers, very little. I can run my minimal business, do the things that my business manager tells me to do, and that's it. And this kid, he came in with his laptop and he was like, oh, mom, I downloaded Linux and this thing that I needed. And he was just like, oh, all these things. There is no way I could have taught him that. And he figured it out and he asked people to help him. And
Yes.
that's how we do things. That's how
Yes.
we are. We ask other people. We
Yeah.
research. We ask Alexa, we ask the robots to help us, right? There's so many ways to figure out the things that we need to know. It
Sometimes
exists.
I like that.
There's so many ways to figure out the things that we want to know. And
Especially today in these
yeah,
times.
yes, and kids are so capable of doing that. They are programmed to ask questions and be curious.
We're
And
curious individuals.
exactly, exactly. And it's, ideally we can start this when they're young so that they don't have their own deprogramming to do. So for a lot of parents, especially like with Bridge Academy, we have people transferring in with even their high school seniors. He can't do it anymore. Can you help him graduate? Yes. And you know what he's going to do this year? Heal.
Yes, nothing.
That is our expectation.
Yeah.
He's going to spend the rest of this year learning again who he is as a human, not as a student, not as an almost adult who's supposed to have it all figured out all of a sudden. Who are you? That's it. That's the expectation. We'll figure out the rest. And that's really like, the intensive is really to help people get through that, like, hand holding, right? Let's really dive into this deschooling work. Let's really look at who your child is as one person, not in a sea of 32 kids that are supposed to be exactly the same, but your one child. Let's figure out how they learn, how they share information, how they absorb information. That's kind of what the intensive does. But Bridge Academy was designed, you know, my curriculum, you're right, my curriculum is very different. It's not day one, you're doing this, day two, you're doing that. It's not, it aligns with standards so that anybody can use it, but it's all child led. There's no workbooks, there's no tests, there's no worksheets. It's activities and invitations to present to the kids that encourages them to engage in the way that they can take out of that whatever they need in that moment. And that is real, meaningful, deep learning because it's in context, it's driven by them, not someone telling them the right answer all of the time. It helps them figure that out. And so I've developed this curriculum over the last 12 years I've been doing this. And 2 years ago, it just got to about 3 years ago, I guess. It got to the point where I was like, no matter what I'm offering these parents, they're still running up against, like, the system is the same, right? These parents are making these individual decisions to do something different, and they're leaning into unschooling and deschooling and child-led learning, and all of this is fantastic, but we're still in this gap in the world right now where the system is not changing, even though the people's eyes are opening. And so there is this gap of how do we still make sure that those kids who want to be doctors can have a diploma and get to college, or those parents who live in states like New York where it doesn't matter, you have to submit all of these evaluations and reports when you're homeschooling, and if they're unschooling and they're not forcing them to do worksheets, there's a gap, right? How do we prove to the state that the kids are learning something? And I dreamed about a bridge, and I told my business manager, I was like, I don't know what this is, but I dreamed about a bridge. And then I was on a walk and somebody had put like one of those little sandwich board signs out front and it just said the bridge, and nothing ever came of that. Like, it's like, that's really weird. And then it like all came together. I was like, that's what this is. It's the bridge between what parents are doing here and that system that hasn't changed. We can be that. We can be the bridge between those two places for those people. And the metaphor kind of extended into like helping parents along that bridge of like, I believed, maybe back the other way, right? I believed everything in the system was true. And now I'm seeing that it isn't. But I don't know how to break free of that when my child's right in front of me. And so that bridge of learning, like, let us hold your hand while you figure that out. You heal, you do the work, you deschool, you lean into your child's learning, and we'll help you make it real, official.
Yeah,
And so that's, Bridge Academy was born and has been wildly successful.
of course.
We could never have imagined our first year, not a single ad. All we did was just let people know. And we had over 1,000 students from 30 countries around the world. It's just been like, what? But,
It's needed. It's
it
needed.
is.
You brought something into the world that's needed.
Yeah. And
And
it's,
I believe every child has that capability
for sure.
as long as we get out of their way.
Absolutely.
Right. And that I want to go back to when you talked about the high schooler that, dropped in and for the year, his assignment was just to heal.
Yeah.
And that healing, you know, parallel to his healing, the parents need to be in a space where they can get out of his way, because a lot of times the fear comes in. And when they're sitting around and they're not doing anything, well, what about this? How about this? Well, you used to do this. How about this? Blah, blah, blah. No, like, what we know is already old. Just keep that in our minds. What we know is already old, and the kids know. Just let them be. Right? I have plenty of parents that will say, like, I'm really lucky because my daughter's always liked horseback riding. So that's her deal, right? A lot of parents will be like, well, my kid doesn't really have a passion. Okay, then that probably means that your kid needs to be doing nothing.
Yeah.
And you need to be doing less talking to this kid, right? And I want to talk about a little bit about your Bridget Academy also, because I did download your morning routine,
Mhm.
the freebie. And as I read through it, which there's a freebie, if you guys want to jump online, there's freebie. The morning routine, what I love about that is, as a parent, when you first look at it, it might feel um, constricting, because you have to create something for your child to dive into when they get up in the morning. However, when you step into it and do it more and make it your own rhythm, it really is going to shift your own nervous system,
Oh, yeah.
because our culture is very busyness driven and a bunch of nothing. And what your morning routine encourages is this moment of pause before you go to bed, to focus on what you're creating for your child because you love them. And then in the morning when they wake up, the first thing that they see is something that's gifted to them that you've created. And you give them the time to do it on their own. And this connection, just reading and thinking again about the morning routine, it gives me chills and it brings tears to my eyes, because it's such a blessing for every family to
Mhm.
have that gift.
Yeah. Oh, I love that analogy of it being a gift. That's such a beautiful way to put it. And it's intentional that it's only takes a few minutes for you to set up. It's not a lot, right? Less time than doing the dishes. Leave the dishes for morning and make this instead, right? And for a lot of families, it's also about where's that rhythm. Maybe your kids are totally fine in the morning, but 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they're craving that connection with you. Do it then. Then, you've got time, you could do it together, right? There's all these ways, but that's it. It's not about forcing a learning experience or controlling the learning that's happening. It's about creating an environment where we all embrace that learning's happening all the time, because you're learning things all of the time and forever, not just in childhood. That's another big myth we have, is that once you turn 18, you can't learn things anymore. It's okay if you didn't nail algebra when you were 16 years old and only cared about your friends, because social growth explodes in your development those years. And yet we expect you to do all of these things. Even that, like, my son is a middle schooler. And so all of his friends are like, between the ages of 12 and 15. And they'll come in, I haven't seen them for a week, and they'll walk in the door and they're 6 inches bigger than they were the last time I saw them. And all I can think is, your body must hurt. How can we expect you to wake up early and learn algebra and biology when you're probably aching from growing? And yet, we have all of our adulthood to maybe do these things, but we don't even think about it that way. And yet we just expect so much of these tiny humans who are growing and changing. And it crushes me every time I think about those. Those are the things that go through my mind all the time is, oh, your poor body
Right.
must hurt. Your
Right.
poor legs, how much that must ache. And yet, too bad. Go to work, go to school, do your
This is the
thing,
program.
yeah,
This is the train that we're on.
productive. But that's the things you have to start thinking about, right? That's how you break free of that, is like, what if you just didn't control them? What are you so afraid that they're going to do? Maybe they'll spend all day watching some YouTube videos. Well, they're probably learning a lot of things. My kids learn a lot from YouTube. Or they're connecting with friends all over the world, or they're just relaxing. And then what I turn that back around is, well, they do nothing all day. Okay, what are you doing all day? What are you doing?
Are you doing anything productive? Yeah, I'm
What are
putting
you
food on the
learning?
table.
Sure. What are you learning right now? What are you focused on and passionate about? How are you furthering yourself right now? And we might regurgitate, well, I'm taking care of the house. Of course you are. Well, I'm doing my job. Of course you are. But who are you? And then we have to deal with that, right? Then we have to deal with,
Eh,
who am I under
Am I?
yeah, under being mom, under a job title? Who am I? What do I love doing? And why didn't I get to explore that for the last 30, 40 years of my life? Because it was crushed out of us. But yeah, there's so much fear of letting go of that.
Right, right. That's the thing. And I'm really into language matters. What we say matters. And so I really want to understand, why do we subscribe to these timelines,
Mhm.
right? The elementary school, middle school, high school. Can we just meet a child and say, "Oh, how old are you?
Yeah,
Great. What are you into?" Let's
yeah.
not talk about, "Oh, are you in high school? Oh, are you in middle school? Oh, are you in sixth grade?" No, no,
Right.
that's programming. I'm 12 and I
Mm.
like to do these things.
Yeah, and it is crazy how, because you're right, and I've noticed this recently as my kids get more into sports, how like the only thing we know how to talk to kids about is school. Like, oh, you know how when you put your name on the paper, oh, you know how when you turn this in, oh, you know how at this class, oh, you know when you get on the bus in the morning. I'm like, wow, like you're just reinforcing that that's it for you. You are just a student, and that's our takeaway as adults. You don't remember anything about being a child outside of a schooling experience.
No, we don't.
That we can't like, would you remember anything else? All you can relate with these kids is how much school sucked, because it's never a positive. It's always like, oh yeah, it's the weekend, right? Yeah, there's just so much ingrained in what we do and what we believe, and it's hard to undo that, it is, and I'm not gonna act like it's just easy to be like, "Oh, you know what? Let's just unschool and break free from the system and do it our way, and we're all just gonna chill." It's hard, it's very hard, and the longer you're in it, the harder it is, and yes, I have 20 years of experience in education and 2 master's degrees, but you know what? That made it harder because
Yes.
that was 10, 15 years more of being in the system that I had to undo. So
From
it's
this level, not from this level,
exactly,
right? Because you're from where you're at, it's literally like, wait, but I'm bringing something to these
exactly.
children. So
Yes.
you
Yeah.
have to dial
You
that back.
became the victimizer in a way. You didn't
Yeah.
realize it until you were there. And that's a lot to undo as well. And there is a horde of teachers leaving the classroom to homeschool their own children. That is one of the biggest new homeschool populations right now is former teachers. So that tells you a lot of things. That tells you a lot of things about what is happening inside the system. We recognize that it is broken, and yet, w- you know, it's the perfect time to look around you. It's like seeing the writing on the walls, right? It's just like when financial experts will tell you a crash is coming, do this with your money. These are the signs, how we know this is history repeats itself. We know these things are happening. It's the same thing. So if you are a parent who says, I can see these things happening in my child's school, I can see that they're not getting any individual attention. I can see the teachers are burned out. These are messages.
Yeah.
This is showing you that something like this is breaking. The system is completely crumbling. The building is on fire, and we're just pretending like it's fine. It's like that meme of that little dog sitting there pretending everything's fine and everything around him is on fire. Like I think we could argue that's every system in our society right now, but it
Every
definitely,
system.
yeah, it's definitely
Thank
the
God. It's
exactly.
time.
Exactly. I'm here for it. Fight club it all.
Yeah,
Burn it all
exactly.
down. Yeah. Yeah. Because, it's not going to be easy to change, but
But
it
life
is
is
going to change the
easy.
world. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, life isn't easy. And the more that we can step into the unknown and step into doing hard things, the easier it becomes. It becomes more exciting because you're starting something new. And for those parents who still, okay, so you're understanding that, okay, the school isn't serving you, you want something different. Now is the time because, as you're saying, teachers are leaving. So you can literally probably call in that intention of finding somebody because you'd like somebody to lead your child because, okay, the reality is you and your husband are working, and you are sustaining. Okay, so pull them out of the system, but find somebody who can light them up,
Yeah.
who thinks like you do, that understands that children learn naturally, and who can put them into experiences,
Yeah.
who
Or
can
just
see them
be
and make them feel connected.
or just be with them so they're safe. It doesn't even have to be someone that's going to be heavily educated and able to sit down and mentor them. Like just someone that's home, a nanny, a babysitter, someone that's home with them so they're safe. that they can go to and ask questions. But kids are capable when you give them that trust and that environment and the resources. And you mentioned something about language matters, and I want to bring that up again because that's so important with our children. Because not only does our language matter, but our intention behind that language matters too. And so a lot of parents will say things like, well, they're just going to play video games all day. They're just going to YouTube all day. They're just going to do blah all day. And even by you saying that, they are very aware, because kids are even more, I believe, like spiritually connected to the meanings of words than adults are. They're still very connected. They know when you disapprove of something that they do or something that they love. So if your words and intentions behind those words are, oh, and you mentioned this already, you used to blah, blah, blah. Remember when you would read? Why don't you read a book instead of playing that video game? When you ascribe your negative emotions to the things your children love and enjoy, that breaks that connection and trust in them. And it doesn't encourage them to feel good about the things that they're doing. And I always tell parents to just try to flip the script and imagine your partner saying the things to you that you are saying to your children. If you had been busy all day and you were sitting on the couch watching a mindless show on Netflix and drinking a soda, if your partner walked in and said, oh my God, what are you doing? I hate when you sit on the couch and watch TV all day. How would that make you feel? Because that's what's happening when you do that to your child. When you're expecting things of them just through your intentions and your words, like, it's really important. This is why we have to do our work. It's not as easy as saying, okay, you don't have to go to school anymore. I'll sign you up with this academy. They'll take care of your paperwork. Okay, we're good now. You have to be willing to work on yourself. You have to. It's like a prerequisite. Like if I could if I could make a prerequisite class before parents could enroll their kids without harming the kids, I would do that, because you have to do that work, because even if for a while it feels really good, something will come up. That fear will come up. And if you have
All
no,
day long.
it will.
Always.
And you'll get over that one, and then they'll get a year older and something else will come around. So,
Yes.
and you have to
Especially with
have,
social media and
gosh,
the phone. I'm going through that like all day long, right? Because my child's been unschooled for like the past 3 or 4 years, right?
yeah,
And this year she's mentoring. Like she's not going to school. Like she's a learner. She's gonna grow into something wonderful and capable, right? But every day it's like, well, there's that little thing that's like, well, has she been on her phone all day? Like, what's going on? And it's really talking myself through it all day
yeah,
long. No,
yeah.
it's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah, and talk to them about it, right? Especially when
Yes.
they're old. I noticed, that's my favorite phrase. I noticed you've been on your phone a lot today. What are you doing? No judgment. I'm just
Mm,
curious. And maybe they'll share with you, especially if there hasn't been judgment in the past, right? Then they're more willing to share. Oh, mom, I da da da. Or this bad thing happened. That's what we really want, right? This bad thing happened and I want to tell you about it instead of feeling shameful or hiding it or sneaking.
yeah,
I want
right.
to share that with you because I trust you. I want your opinion. Those are the pieces that matter, right? And I think we get so wrapped up in school being this like ultimate preparation for adulthood, and it isn't. It's not.
No, it's not at
And
all.
that's evident by the way you feel. If you don't feel that you can teach your own child, then what did they do? Isn't that the point of learning something, that you can then turn around and teach it to somebody else? But if you were brought up in that system and you don't feel prepared to help your child through it, then that system failed. It didn't work. Right? So
Good point.
like, and it's this whole like, well, teachers are trained in behavior management. That is what teachers are trained in.
Correct.
We're trained not to teach one child. We are trained to teach 35 children, and how to manage that, and how to have classroom strategies.
Yeah.
Content is a very small portion of what teachers learn in higher education. We are not taking advanced level math classes or how to teach math classes. We're teaching pedagogy. That's what we're being taught, is how to exist in this system.
There you
Um,
go, people.
think it's very
I'm
important.
an educator.
Yeah, it's very important to know that. Educators are not being taught anything that you weren't already taught. They're just being told how to do it to a big group all at once.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I want to talk about, socialization for children. And this past year, we homeschooled our kids, and it was a group of them. And when, I was bringing and watching the math and the creative writing, whatever we thought was like important for the kids to learn, what dawned on me was, oh, here I am with these four kids, and each one of them learns completely different. So this person who doesn't love to read and doesn't love to like write a paper, why are we making her do that? It's ridiculous. Her gifts are somewhere else. So that's ridiculous. However, what are the things where they bring them together and everybody is like lit up? It's the arts. So
Yes.
painting, drawing, woodworking, pottery, these are the things. That's what's important. So when you are considering pulling your child out of school and you still feel like they need English or math, bring that to them on an individualized basis. If they're not getting what you're putting out, look at a different way of bringing it and ask them how they're coming to it and understand it more, because there are 75 different ways to teach math equations and we only know one, right? But make sure you get them into these things that are fun.
Yes.
And that's where the socialization comes in.
Of course. And that's such a myth, right? That where else in life for the rest of your life are you going to be in a room with 30 people exactly your age that live within your neighborhood blocks? Never. That's not real social, where with one authority figure telling you when it's okay to talk and how what you can talk about. That's not real. That's not real socialization. It's just not, right? And most socialization that happens in school is either heavily constructed by an adult or it's bullying,
Yeah.
because they don't have enough time to actually learn who each other, who they are, right? None of my best friends are exactly my same age or from the same
No.
geographical location. It's not practice for real life. Practice socialization for real life is the kids in your community, talking to the mail carrier, talking to the ordering food at the restaurant. That's real life. Talking to your parents, talking to your grandparents, siblings. We are socializing all of the time just by communicating with people. And now on the internet, we can meet anybody from anywhere. My youngest will, or my middle child, he loves to like soccer is his favorite thing. And so he'll talk with other people about soccer. And there's like translator apps now that can instantaneously translate with wonderful accuracy communication. He can talk to people in Brazil about soccer. And even though he doesn't speak Portuguese, they can easily, quickly translate fast enough to have conversations. These things exist now. It's never been easier, right? And yet, we just still pretend. We still have this myth about homeschoolers are going to be the weird kids who can't socialize. And
So
it's
not true.
it's not true. Yeah. And you talked about reading and math. And I like to say that when you think that there's something they're supposed to know, because that's a fear, right? Oh, they're not doing math. That's a fear. Fear comes up. Bloop, fear is bubbled up. Now what? Okay. First, you ask yourself, is this fear for me? Or is this fear for my child? And that's not I'm scared for my child. It's where did that fear come from? Did that fear come from I noticed my child trying to solve a math problem in real life and they couldn't do it and that frustrated them? Or is that fear yours? Oh, I saw the neighbor doing math homework and mine's not doing that. And now I feel inadequate. Or, whatever that is, right? Oh, at that age I was doing da 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 and they're not. That's a fear I have. And I'm going to
Right.
put it on them
Right.
by forcing them to do something. That one usually will be because it's usually like 99 and 1. Very rarely is that fear actually serving the child. It's a fear of yours.
Right.
And then another one is, okay, where in my life as a functioning adult am I using that skill? Okay, my kid can't do fractions. Where in life am I doing fractions? Okay, in the kitchen. When we're baking, we're doing fractions. So I'm going to invite my child in and we're going to bake and they're going to learn that skill in real life. And if you can't think of an example, then why? What's the point of that skill? Right? Just because at some point somebody said it's supposed to be learned. If you trigonometry, calculus, algebraic equations, we already know that 90% of people won't use any math past fourth grade math. There was a wonderful TEDx talk about that. It was a high level mathematician.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Who's like, after 90% of people will never touch math that they learned beyond fourth grade in their daily lives. So what are we doing? Why are we wasting 8 more years of their lives every single day, pressuring them to learn something that they might not ever have the developmental capability to learn, and yet they could be doing something else, like art and music, the things that light us up as humans. When we can create something, that is when we feel most connected to the world. And
Right.
that's the thing that is gone from our school system. It's the first thing to go. When
Yeah.
there's no money, the first thing that's gone is arts and music.
Right.
Every time, because there's no data around it. There's no test to prove it. There's no funding coming in for it. So that's what we get rid of. And then we wonder why they're not creative. And those skills are not just about, and this is where we bridge that gap, right? Because this isn't just woo-woo conversation. It's not just about being connected and soul purposed and spiritual. The top employers in the world are looking for skills that directly align with being creative. They want creative problem solvers. They want good communicators. They want new, fresh ideas. They don't want test takers, information regurgitators, sit still and do whatever the boss tells you. That's not what we're looking for as employers anyway. We want people with new inventions, new ideas, take us to the moon. That's what we want as employers. And yet we crush it out of them
Mm-hmm.
favor of fact regurgitation and test taking. And we wonder why we don't have people that can do this anymore. Yeah, it's really, it's a whole shift, but it makes sense. Like it is all grounded in reality.
Right. That
Like, pay attention.
right. So really, if you want to raise a child that thrives in this world, you want to pull them out of the system that is broken. And you want to be creative and you want to allow them to be creative. And when you do that, you will also see that you are inspiring and conditioning in your child the inspiration to create anew,
Yeah.
because there is a multitude of things that can be created that have not been created. And if we allow them, sure, they might be the person who is successful in a company, working for somebody and climbing up the corporate ladder because they're creative and they have great ideas, but they will eventually probably far surpass that and create their own company
Yeah.
because they've been given the agency and the support to live in that way that is bigger than life.
Yeah.
That they're not being crushed in
Yeah,
any
and
way.
they're not forced into it. They're not forced into this productivity. And even if all they ever do is simple work, easy work, if they can come home and let it go and still have those passions and know that they love things still, they can read, they can learn, they can draw, they can create, then they're still very, very successful. And something that's so important here is understanding the trauma around all of this, because it's just like with parenting, right? If you became a parent without addressing some of your own childhood wounds, whatever traumas you might have had in your childhood, if you didn't address those are going to come up for you, right? We know that as parents. And it's the same thing with education. There are very clear trauma wounds that happen in a classroom, even if there's a great researcher that looked into this, like the 7 different wounds of educational trauma. And actually she started, I forget her name, but she started with, she was at Harvard and she was doing a project and she wanted to see what people loved about school, because she thrived in school and she did really well and she was really smart. And so she wanted to do her final doctorate research on people loving school. And she had all these people of all different ages come in and interview, and very quickly realized, I have to do a study on why they hate it, because that's all they would talk about. All they would talk about was how it hurt them. And so she transitioned the study and came up with these wounds of educational trauma. And everybody, whether we believe that we've left with these wounds or not, every one of us that was in a system like that is leaving with a wound. Even if there's some wounds, like one of them was wound of the average, being the kid that just, you did your work, No one paid attention to you. You sat there, you got it done, you made it through, and you come out on the other side, and all you know how to do is please somebody else. You don't know anything about you. That is a big gaping wound that is hard to realize that it's there. And yet, if we don't do the work to recognize that, all we're doing is we're continuing to exist with that wound, first of all, which ruins our own lives. But we do it again to the next generation without even thinking about it. And I think it's really, really important to recognize how much damage that can do to your whole life,
Oh, 100%.
who you believe you are as a person. And that's happening. It's actively, if you are watching this and your kid is sitting in a public school classroom, that's happening to them right now. And that's just a reality that we have to swallow, I guess. Yeah, it is. And it's not every trauma is like car crash, fatal, terrible thing happened to me. A trauma is something that changes who you are at your core. And a lot of that happens when we're very little. And because
Oh,
things are
yeah.
done to us, right? Things are done to us as children. Everything your child is doing, you're doing to them. You're making those choices for them. It's a great responsibility. It's really important to recognize the responsibility that you have. And yeah, you're right. Like we said at the beginning, you might have to make some sacrifices, but in the long run, there's those beautiful images of like the grandparent yelling and then the parent yelling and then the next parent putting up a wall and saying kind things to the child, and the child's just lit up. You can stop. It's like generational trauma. You can stop it. You can be the one to stop it. And it starts by believing that your child is a capable learner, trusting that your child can learn what they need when they need it on their own timeline, and then creating that safe space for them, which means doing your deschooling work, confronting your fears, and healing your wounds so that they have that model of somebody that's done it around them and gives them that power to be that force in the future. And then by stopping that, your grandchildren don't have to go through that because you have stopped it in its tracks. And we can hope and wish that society as a whole will change by then, but
It's relevant.
it's not likely. And it's certainly not likely if individuals don't do something different. Society is made up of all of us individually, right? So if the most of us are just, well, you got to keep your head down and power through, just get through it, get your job, go to retirement, and hope you survive. That's just what's going to keep happening. But if enough of us start saying, I'm done with this. This isn't serving anyone anymore. I'm done. I'm stepping out of it. I'm pulling my kids out of it. Maybe you're stuck, right? Maybe you have to work your job and you have to pay your mortgage and you have to make it to retirement. But that doesn't have to be true for your child. So
Right.
maybe you can stop it for them even, right? So there's a lot of power in those choices. Um,
A
yeah.
lot of power in the choices.
Yeah.
And that's why Perfect Child exists, because we have a lot of shamans and healers that are on there for us to do our own healing as well, so that we can be better parents,
Mm.
right? So that we don't bring our own trauma into this relationship. I want to read a post that you had put up. Why does our children's freedom make us so uncomfortable that we feel the need to dictate how every moment of their time and energy is spent? Why do we lack so much trust in them? Is it because we were not trusted as children? And so we really have to, a big part of what this takes is us trusting ourselves and our own intuition. Because once you set that intention that this is not what you want for your child, things will be coming at you. The universe will provide you with the tools to move forward, and they're going to seem really scary and it's not going to sound right, because people are going to look at you like you're crazy and they're going to tell you you're crazy. And, they're going to come and talk to your child and tell your child how crazy you are.
Right.
But you got to trust and dig in more, do more of the self work, do the journaling, do the meditation,
Yeah.
see your child, spend time just visualizing your child, just the features, what you want for them, the love. Like, I was just in the silent retreat, and the woman was talking about the core frequency of people. And when I think about it, I'm like, but isn't everybody's core frequency love?
Mm.
So how do we
Yep.
look at how we're interacting with our children, and how are we expressing that love?
Mhm.
without fear.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what we do when we're manipulating our children to act in a certain way, be a certain way, it's fear
100%. Yep. And expectation.
and expectation. Whose expectations? How
Yep.
do we dig in deep and express unconditional love?
And you have to be willing to set those boundaries. Like literally yesterday, my kids have never been to school. This is a journey that I started when I was pregnant with my oldest. So they've never been to school. They don't often know what grade they're in because we don't make it matter, right? Unless it matters for sports, they don't even know. And still yesterday, my mother-in-law made a comment on the phone with my husband. Well, what are they doing all day? Whatever they want. We're 13 years into this, mom. All right. This is a boundary. And you have to because you're right, there will be people forever that will have a problem with it. And it will be the people who didn't make a different choice for you. And that makes them feel guilty. And so that when you're having those emotions, it's most of us are just we're letting life happen to us. Most people out here, we're going with the motions. We're doing what people tell us to do, what we think is expected. We're not challenging it. We're not thinking differently. We're just doing. And when someone comes into our world that has done everything differently and has reasons that they've done it differently, it forces those people to confront the fact that they never even questioned it. And that will often reflect back on judgment as judgment on you. Oh my God, you're the weird one. You're doing things differently. And I'm only saying that because you've made me feel really weird that I just did what everybody else always told me to do. And that's when you think of it that way, it's a lot easier to be unbothered by people who no one that is judging you has thought anywhere near as deep as you have about the choices that you've made. No way. So that's very empowering to think about when you come up against judgment. Like, well, I've actually put time and thought, pulled the
Done
veils.
a lot of work.
I've pulled the veils back and I've seen and I've made sacrifices and I've made choices and I've done very hard things to be here. And so I'm not going to accept judgment by someone who has not made any of those realizations or plans or sacrifices. Not to mention, you aren't responsible to anybody else. It's not your responsibility you don't have to explain yourself. One of my most viral posts is that it's not your responsibility to make other people comfortable with the choices you make for your family. And it isn't. Not your mother-in-law, not your mom, not your sister. You inside your house, who's in your four walls. That's your responsibility. That's it. You don't owe anyone else an explanation. No, mom, let me explain why we're doing that. Nope, this is what we're doing. This is what's best for my family. Period. The end. Accept it or leave us alone. Those are safe boundaries that we would create in any other circumstance, right? If there was a physical concern or a fear, we would set those boundaries. And this is protecting your child from traumas of the educational mental variety, right? If you would set those boundaries for physical abuse, you can set them this way too. And that's especially going into the holidays. I mention that now because we're going into this season where people are going to be spending time with family and seeing all those people that have all of these judgments to make and will quiz your kids. What are you reading? What are you learning? What's 2 + 2? Don't let them do that. Set those boundaries for yourself and for your child and protect them from that, because it's really important that they feel confident in themselves and not let other people have sway in how they feel about themselves.
Yeah. And it's fair to just ask questions back, what did your biology, how do you use it into day-to-day world? How does physics work? Are you
Yep.
using history all day long?
What's the last book you read?
Right?
Exactly. Favorite dinosaur?
So, okay, so Bridge Academy. You are all the way up to fourth grade.
12th, no, K to 12th. So we actually have curriculum through 8th grade. The way that it's structured is developmentally appropriate. So in K through 4, the curriculum is a little bit more structured, like what you might be used to kind of help people scaffold that learning, right? I want to think about it as like you're building a scaffolding up around your child. When they're very little, obviously they need a lot of that support, right? They need something to hold on to. They have a lot of questions. They don't know anything about the world other than what they've touched and seen. And so in K through 4, it's still a little bit divided into like, here's some reading, here's some science, here's some math, still very child friendly, but it's scaffolded. Once they get to middle school, 5th grade, then we start removing some of that scaffolding. And the curriculum shifts from what to learn to how to learn. And so in 5th through 8th grade, they're working through a collection of very, very open-ended, broad themes that they get to choose that teaches them how to learn. All right, I've got this very broad category. One of them is world cultures. What questions do I have? How do I deepen my questions? Who do I go to for information? Who in my community can help me with this information? Where can I find resources that I can trust? How do I deepen my knowledge about this specific thing?
And that is only if they're interested in world cultures.
Exactly. There's a dozen other themes. And you can also just take the practice and apply it to any concept, whatever they might love. Horse riding, you love horse riding? Here we go. Who do I talk to? How do I turn this into a job? Because that's my next thing in life, right? Where do I go? It's the focus on how do I learn things? Because by the time they get to high school, it's completely independent. We don't have a focused high school curriculum. We have a set of guidelines. Hey, you know what? You want to graduate with us? Here's what you need. All right. You need legally 4 maths, 4 readings, 4 sciences, but we understand maybe you're the kid who wants to take some online classes. Cool. Give us those transcripts. We'll apply it. Maybe you are running. We have kids who are entrepreneurs. They're running their own business. That kid's doing enough math to graduate high school. Okay. They're doing enough reading and social media and sciences. We have a high schooler who has already signed a professional soccer contract to play for a professional team overseas. These are the kids who they already know who they are. And that's because of the parents supporting this path. So by the time they get to high school with Bridge Academy, it's completely self-directed. What is it that you love? Do that. And you know what? Maybe they won't be professional athletes and entrepreneurs. Maybe they'll just do something that they love. Maybe they'll just be kids. That
Yeah.
is perfectly acceptable too.
Yeah.
And so they just check in with us every month, fill out a couple of forms. How are you feeling? How are your emotions? How's your physical body? We ask them questions that matter. And then we ask them, all right, here we go. Let's talk about math. What did you do last month that looked like math, that felt like math? And we encourage that self-reflection, that personal learning journey. We take that information, we turn that into high school credits. They get transcripts and they can graduate.
This is amazing. This is incredible. You have created something that I believe will give parents, oh man, such a relief. Such a
Yep.
relief. I'm so excited to have this go out and just like market it with
Yeah.
you, along with you, because it's so exciting. This is what people want. That's what they're afraid of. And I love that. So once they participate in Bridge Academy, then they meet with you once a month, once a week, that let's say high schoolers.
Once a month, there's a check-in. They don't even have to show up on a camera. It's a form they can fill out online that they just
Okay.
share. They can share photos. They can write for our school newsletter if they want. It can participate as much or as little as they want. We respect that individual journey. Reach out if they have questions, if they need support. We're working to add things like some high school courses that are like optional that they could choose to take if they want them from like a wide variety of people that can teach so many cool things, like some entrepreneurship classes, music classes, things like that. But all of that would be optional, right? We want you by high school, we want you focused on who you are becoming, where do you want to go? And they really get to actually explore that because we're not loading them down with
Yeah.
forced classes that take all of their brain
Mhm.
power. They actually have
Yeah.
time. So.
Um, and then if they want to speak with you directly, could they?
Yeah, we have
Or for
easy.
counseling?
Yeah, they can email us at any time. We have the students can email us, the parents can email us, reach out any way they want to. Yep.
Oh, fantastic. So they can experience them a little bit of hand holding if they're a little bit confused or whatever.
Totally. Yeah.
Oh, that is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And this was what, 3 years in the making?
Yeah, I mean, we had 1 year of like development and doing some of the research, and then we were like, you know what? Let's just see what happens. Let's just put it out there and support the kids that are ready for it. And we thought maybe if we could get 100 kids, that'd be cool. And then it was like 1,000 came in. We're like, whoa, okay, we're really doing this thing now. And so we're working towards accreditation now, which will give us even more private school status in some other states. We're like registered as a private school in most states, and any state where we are able to be registered, we are. So actually, in most cases, our students are not even officially homeschoolers. They are private school students. So they don't have to submit homeschool
Oh, interesting.
paperwork. Yeah, if they're enrolled with us in most states, they are private school students. And if they still have to register as homeschoolers, we do all of the paperwork for the parents so that they don't have to worry about that additional stressful piece of turning that life learning into something that can be approved by the state.
Right, but they don't really have to do that. That's
In some
arbitrary.
states, yeah, I mean, it's, in some states, some districts are tougher than others. It
But
kind of
we're
just
sovereign.
Yeah, well, I completely agree. But there are cases where it's just been, if a child has been registered in public school before, especially if they have an IEP, so that they're tracked then by the state for a disability. At that point, then when you bring them home, if they are in a state where they have to be registered as a homeschooler, like they will send people to the house to check on the child, and it can be very scary, which is also why we exist, literally to be that bridge of, hey, we will take care of that so that you are.
Oh, so if somebody has a child that has an IEP and they want to pull out of the system, they can actually, if they're in a state where you guys are accredited, they can just enroll in you, and now they're in a private school.
Exactly. Yep.
Amazing.
IEPs transferred to us. Done.
And you guys, so how many states so far do you know off the top of your head that you are accredited in?
Well, in every state you can enroll. So
Okay.
accreditation isn't complete. Accredited is, just for a little bit of research for you. There is no federally accrediting body. No school has to be accredited. Not even public schools are accredited. That's accreditation in the United States is only for colleges and universities. That's where it actually matters. So in K to 12 schools, it's a choice. You can choose to be accredited, which basically just means you have the money to pay an accreditation body to look at your stuff and put a seal of approval on it. There's only 2 states where being accredited gives us that status, which we're still seeking because it matters for those kids. But in every other state, registering as a private school is just, getting approval from the state to operate that way. And so the only roadblocks we ran in, everywhere we can do that, we have. The only roadblocks we ran into is there are some states where they do not allow virtual schools to be considered private schools because they have public versions to keep the tax dollars for the kids. So in a state like New York, we cannot operate as a private school unless we have a building there and the kids are going there, because New York has their own virtual school that they want kids to attend to, because then they keep 100% of the tax dollars. So there's a lot of systems kind of coming together to crush what we're trying to do. it's
You're
a
like,
big,
okay, time to move out of New York. If you live in New
exactly.
York, move.
But you know what? We handle it. New York is the hardest one. They have all kinds of reports. We do all of them. We do them for you. So it definitely we have a lot of New York students, because even that easing that burden for the parents has been immense for them. So yeah.
What a blessing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, this has been, wow. This is so magical. It's really going to help people to pull away from the system.
That's the goal.
Much easier.
Yep. I like to say that my ultimate goal is that I'm not needed anymore. That's it, right? That's where I want people to be so confident that they don't need me anymore. They've stepped fully into being sovereign, I guess is the best way to say, like you said,
Living
right?
life. Living life and having confidence that when you live life in an intentional way, your child will blossom.
Yeah. Oh yes.
They
Absolutely.
don't need that school. They don't need a block building.
No. Nope. And they can always go back to it. And that's what I tell parents, right? Try it. They're not going to shun you from the building.
Right.
Give it a try. Give them a year and watch them grow and blossom. And if it's miserable for everyone, that building will still be there, ready to take you back. So
Yeah.
at least
It'll
try.
always be there.
It will. Give it a try. You owe that. I think if any of this resonates, you owe your child, and maybe even your inner child, the opportunity to say, let's give this a whirl. Really, truly, not replacing school at home, but really, truly, let me see who my child is. Let's see, stripping
Yeah.
all of that away, all the academic checklists and the expectations. When I strip all of that away, who is my child? And that's that's a scary thing to realize, that if you ask parents on average to tell you about their child, how much of what they say would would come from their school experience. Do we really know who our kids are as humans, as people? Um, and you can't really look at that if everything you do is dictated by a school day, you know?
Well, and also, I don't know if you notice this oftentimes is when, you ask parents to talk about their child, it's always the negative first.
Oh, for sure.
It's how they don't, it's how they don't fit into society in a way that we're familiar with. So actually, when you say pull your child out of school for a year, it's also to really force yourself to move into this space of knowing yourself as a parent. Think of the message that we're sending our child when we say, you know what, let's take a year off from the school. I don't think that it's actually serving us, and let's just dial it back. We'll take a break, and we'll just not do academics for an entire year, right? And we're going to see, let's compare our days, what that looks like. And when you do that as an adult, as a parent, that's a big shift. And
Mhm.
then it allows you to then feel a little bit more confident in owning your sovereignty and stepping into your sovereignty and understanding that there are so many things that we could be doing differently. And now, because you've sent this message to your child, be the warrior for your child. I'm going to pull you out because I don't think this is working. Even if they think it's working, I
Yeah,
don't think it's working. And let's just take a break for a year and see what happens. You're going to do nothing. And I'm okay with it. What, you really? I can
whatever
just
you
sit at
want.
home and
Whatever.
like be on my phone all day? Yes. Yes.
Yep. Whatever
That's
you want to do.
empowering.
Because here's the thing, when they know they can do that, that's not all they're going to do. That
No.
gets very boring. Doing the same thing every day gets very boring. But what they want is the control of it, the power of being able to do that all day. And when there's no frustration, there's no judgment, there's no harsh words, there's no, oh, I wish you would or you should, when it's just, if that makes you happy, do that. Then it's like, okay, well, I did enough for today. Now I want to do something else. Now I want to go somewhere. Now I want to see something. Now I want to learn something, try something, make something.
Yeah.
And that is when you can discover that about yourself, that is so freaking powerful compared to someone telling you to do it. Well, let's put your phone down and let's do an art project, is way different than, I don't want to do this anymore. I
Yeah.
want to do something else now. Whoa, I can make that choice. I
Yeah.
can choose. I can do that whenever I want. Oh my God, I'm an individual. I'm a human. Like that's what we want, right?
And it
That's
doesn't even matter what age you are.
oh.
Imagine the joy it would bring, the excitement, because, oh my gosh, my mom just did something crazy.
Yeah,
She
right.
literally pulled me out of school and I don't have to do a thing. And all your friends are going to be like, wait, you don't have to do a thing? Well, what are you doing all day? I just eat popcorn all day long. I eat candy all day long. I don't do a thing. Well, now I'm bored. Well, that's great, honey. I'm working. Go find something to do. If you can't do anything, go to sleep. Whatever. What? This
If
is
you have an idea, let
unreal.
me know. Yeah. If you have an idea, let me know.
Unreal. For an entire year,
Mhm.
that that's where it's at. I think we should do
Yeah.
a year long.
Challenge. Yeah. Well, and even just every day, those feelings you're going to have, like you and your child are both going to be having such different feelings. Like there's going to be a period, I can promise you, if you do something like this, where they will not trust you,
Yeah.
not trust that this is real. They will be heavily, it'll be like the
I
kid.
need to go back to school.
It'll
I'm
be like
missing out.
Halloween night. It'll be like Halloween night, right? Hurry, eat it all because I know mom's taking this away in the morning. and gorging themselves. And that's what it'll be like never getting out of bed, or yeah, missing friends, or like they're not going to trust that you really trust them because that wasn't shown.
Do
Same thing.
you?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Do we? That's
And
our work.
that's your work, right? They're doing their work of like, okay, I got to get through this period where I don't really trust that my parents are actually letting me do this. This is crazy. And then, whoa, okay, a certain number of weeks have gone by. This is real. They really are like trusting me. What am I going to do with that? And we're going to be going through like, oh my God, what am I doing? This is crazy. I can't believe I did this. They haven't left their room in 3 days. This is making me nuts. The room is a mess. Let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go, right? Trust them because they have to heal from that also. Like everything, imagine someone controlling everything you do all of the time, and then they don't anymore. Ooh, it's like Stockholm syndrome, right? We're like,
Yes.
oh, I have to go back. I have to be oppressed. I have to be controlled. Break
I
free
need
from
to be with my friends and do what my friends are doing. No, you don't.
Yeah,
You don't, and we're not.
yeah. And you can do it after school. Go hang out. Go have the best part of
After a year, if
the best
after a
part.
year you still feel like you need to go back, go back. But
And
we're taking
what will they have learned? Even if they do, that's still not a failure. What have they
yeah,
learned about themselves in that?
right.
You know,
Yeah,
the school will catch them up. I promise you, they're not missing anything.
no,
There's nothing
not
academic
in
that
1 year. Not in one
absolutely there's nothing that they're going to miss. And they will have learned and discovered so much about themselves and about the system, so that at least if they go back, they'll be able to look around and be like, this is bullcrap. you know,
Yeah,
that doesn't matter. That's not real. I don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. And then they're little, anarchists in the system. Like, none of this is real. You don't have to do any of this, right? That's what we're creating. So in a way, it's almost better if some of them go back and subvert a little bit.
yeah. It'll be that. It will be that.
Yeah.
Well,
And that's what the Academy is there for. Enroll with us and you're covered. And you can do whatever
yeah,
you want to do here.
because after a year, they're like, we're not going back. Okay, well, now what are we doing? Well, here we go.
They have to go back. They've got a transcript. Boom. They did something for the year. They were in private school. They'll never.
Perfect. Right. Oh, you just created a little like hammock that people can fall into.
Exactly. Yes.
It's not a full on jump. It's okay.
No,
It's all right.
it's step on the bridge, literally. We're
Yeah,
gonna protect you.
it's a bridge.
Yes.
Thank you, Leah.
Welcome.
That was a wonderful conversation.
Yeah. I'm glad we just dove into it.
Yeah. Is there anything that you want to add that we may have missed?
Oh no, I don't think so. I most interviews I end with something we pretty much just covered, but I'll say it anyway. And maybe, you know what, if the year idea sounds enticing, but no way, I can't do that. I can't really do that. 24 hours. Anytime a fear comes up about your child, or you notice that it's just those negative, like they can't do this, they're failing at this, da, 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 give yourself permission for nothing bad is going to happen in 24 hours. Give yourself permission to not be scared of anything and just watch them for 24 hours. Watch your child with the sole purpose of asking yourself, what are they capable of doing? Because that, when you take away the like academic fears and the pressures and everything they're not doing, that's when you see the things about them that really matter. Wow, they're so great with their siblings. They're so patient. They're so kind to others. They're so meticulous. Whatever. That's when you see who they really are. And finding those like core things about a human, the rest doesn't matter. And it helps so much. It helps you really see them, but also to understand it. None of that other stuff matters as an entity, as a human, right? Like those are the pieces that we get so hung up on and they don't matter. So just give yourself 24 hours. It's if you can do it for a year, cool. If not, 24 hours. I just want to watch them and see what they can do. It's
Yeah.
very, very empowering.
From a love perspective, what are the things that they can do? And if you can't see it, give
You
yourself
need
48 hours.
Yep. Keep looking
You
then.
know, just if you can't see it, then also, I would recommend journaling.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Something.
journal what you see in your child. And if you don't see enough of it, if you don't see at least 5 things that you think are absolutely magical about your child, or if you're seeing more negative than you are positive, please journal about that and give
Yeah.
yourself more time.
More
Go the
time.
whole week.
Yeah. Something is, if that shows if you can't, even in 24 hours, if you can't in 24 hours see those things, there is deep disconnect, very deep disconnect. And that is critical to resolve, regardless of the schooling situation you pick, as the relationship with your child is in jeopardy at that moment. And that's important to recognize.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. All right. Well, I will talk to you soon.
All righty.
Thank you so much. Bye.